Tom's going to tell a story that may or may not be specific to the 617 area code. Or 978.
I think so. All right. I'm trying. So before I start, I apologize if my accent is atrocious. The more excited I get, the more ridiculous it gets. My fiance lives in Lewiston, which is why I now live in Lewiston. And I'm slowly learning to control my accent more the longer I live here. So this story takes place about 20 years ago, which makes me feel really old. And it was the first trip I ever took outside of the country on my own. And my buddy Murphy and I know, shocking, some Irish kid from Boston and myself. Weird, I know, so weird. We went to Scotland, and we spent the better part of a month backpacking throughout the country and having all sorts of adventures, and it really just set the stage for me wanting to travel for the rest of my life. Not all of the stories were good. This one, more funny than not, but I'll leave that up to you. So we had just taken a train from Edinburgh, capital of Scotland, all the way up to Inverness, which is like the top end of Loch Ness, which anyone who goes to Scotland, you know, I'm gonna go see the Loch Ness Monster, we gotta do this. And Murphy and I decide we're gonna hike, so we've been hiking throughout the country, from Inverness to Fort Augustus, which is at the far end, which is basically from here to Portland. Yeah, we don't really have that much camping gear, but shit, we're kids, whatever. We're gonna do this, we're gonna make this happen. So we start walking, and amazingly, it starts downpouring in Scotland. Again, weird. Who would have thought that would happen? And so he looks at me, I look at him, we're both drenched. Like the whole sort of like drowned rat concept comes to mind. And he goes, do you want to hitchhike? Yeah, let's do this. I mean, what could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? And so we put our thumbs out and like, I don't know, just like that, in an instant, this tiny little blue car, little blue sedan pulls over with this very saintly looking woman driving, and she goes, and I can't do a Scottish accent, so I apologize. She goes, do you boys need a ride? Insert accent as I'm saying this. Not mine though. And she goes, where are you headed? And we went Fort Augustus, and she's like, oh, I'm not gonna take you there. Okay. But I'll get you close. And you know what? For two college kids, let's do this. So Murphy piles in the front, I pile in the back. We throw both of our like huge, you know, it's like early to mid 90s expedition gear, which was those giant like framed backpacks that I'm pretty sure I ripped up her backseat as we just stuffed the stuff in there. And we start driving, and she drives forever, and she's super nice, and she's driving like 1,000 miles an hour down like one-lane roads, where other cars are driving 1,000 miles an hour, and there's like these little circles that you have to guesstimate that you're both gonna not die. And we're like, I'm in the back going, oh, and I drive in Boston, and I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? But you're trying to keep cool because this woman's taking us way past where we could go. All right, so so we get to this spot, sort of off the beaten path. She goes, you're about 10 miles from Fort Augustus, which is like I said, the town at the end of Loch Ness. During which, by the way, during this drive, she explained to us that Loch Ness is actually a giant crustacean that she feels is a big crab. I don't know what that says about Mrs. Archer, but that's what she told us, so I'm telling you. And she lets us out. She goes right down this hillside, perfect spot to camp. There's a little river, inlet, do it, have at it. Murph and I say, thank you very much. And as I'm getting out of the car, I look in the car, and there is a gray knit hat, which looks just like the gray knit hat that I had on when I got in the car. So I grab it, I grab my backpack, and I go to put it in my back pocket, and I realize my gray hat is in my back pocket. So as she goes to pull away, I'm like, wait, because I'm not a thief. Or at least not in this occasion, I'm not a thief. And she stops, and I go, Mrs. Archer, I'm so sorry, I almost took your hat. Look, they're identical. She goes, oh, that's fine. Drives off. Murphy and I go down, we set up our limited campsite. He takes off into the woods. I sit there eating an orange, trying to make a fire in wet wood, which doesn't work. But you know, you're trying, you're doing the best you can. And so all of a sudden from behind me at the top of this embankment, maybe 5 minutes after I've given up on starting a fire because it's just fizzling and not doing anything, I hear, hello, hello, and I turn around, and there's Mrs. Archer and this tall, saintly, very angry-looking man who I can only assume is, as I later found out, the Reverend Mr. Archer. And I'm like, okay. So I run back up the top, and she goes, I'm not sure how to put this, but did you steal my purse? And I went, this is the best pardon my French, but this is the best fucking con I've ever heard. The Reverend and his wife and 2 idiot Americans. We're losing. Like, they're just, you want the money out of my pocket right now, because they're not gonna believe me, or Murph. So I do what I can. I'm like, no, I apologize. I'm like, is there any way you could have left this somewhere else? She goes, well, I may have left it on the counter at the store I was at before I picked you up. Very common in Scotland. Apparently memory just goes out the window. Stores close because they want to have lunch. But it's weird, it's fun, it's great. And she comes back and I said, no. And she goes, well, can you check? So I run back down the hill, I grab the bags, I grab everything out of the tent, I'm dumping it on the wet ground. I'm like, I look like a savage, just ripping through everything. And I've run back up the stairs, I'm like, or the hill I should say, and I go, it's not here, it's gone. Like, it's not, we didn't take it. She goes, oh, okay. And there's this like pregnant pause where she's staring at me and I'm staring at her, and Mr. Archer's staring at me like this, and I'm going, is there any way you could check and call the store? Oh, they're closed. Well, could you call them tomorrow? I'll make sure that we don't leave before, say, like 10. Long story short, she goes, fine, they take off. Murphy comes back, freaks out at me because all his stuff is all over the ground. He thinks I'm trying to steal from him. We go to sleep that night. Rain starts. Murphy's up. I fall asleep. Wake up! I think I hear something. There's nothing. You're out of your mind. It's fine. Fall back to sleep. Wake up! Dude, it's nothing. I heard something. And as I'm trying to fall back to sleep, I hear footsteps. In the rain, in the dark, in the middle of the woods in Scotland. And from out of the darkness, this deep Scottish voice says, is anyone home? I have presents. Maybe I shit my pants a little bit. Murphy at this point has freaked out completely and is like, ah! And so I'm trying to maintain calm, thinking, no exit from the tent, we're both gonna die. I guess this is acceptance. And so I do the only thing I can, and I say to this voice in the darkness that I cannot see, what kind of presents do you have? What are you gonna say to that? And he goes, again, maggots and cornmeal. Yeah, that's not out of a nightmare, isn't it? So I said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. We go fishing. Later I found out this is a great thing to put on a fishing hook and go fishing in Scotland with. Nobody told you that in the guidebooks before you left. Anyways, so after that terror, he tromps off in the night, never to be seen again. I fall asleep. Murphy attacks me in my sleep because he dreams he's wrestling with demons in the woods. I get no sleep. We wake up 10 a.m. in the morning. We pack up. The Archers haven't arrived. We start walking to Fort Augustus. About 2 miles in, little blue sedan starts coming down the road. Mr. Archer looks much more gleeful today. And Mrs. Archer is clutching her purse with like sort of a resignated form of like happiness. And she goes, I did leave it at the store. You were right. You are nice boys. Again, with a Scottish accent. And so that was the end of that adventure, hence this story. So I hope you enjoyed it.